Hello, hello. Are you here, friendo? It is the Paul Leslie Hour, and we're here today with Part 3, the final part of Clay Eals' interview with the late Jimmy Buffett. Jimmy Buffett passed away September 1st, 2023. One thing is certain, the likes of him will not be seen again. Clay Eals and Paul will talk for a bit, and then we'll begin the final part of this never-before-heard interview with Jimmy Buffett. We think you'll learn a lot about Jimmy. Author Clay Eals did this interview by telephone in October of the year 2000. He did this for his book, Steve Goodman Facing the Music. After the interview, you'll hear Paul and Clay talk a bit more. They look for meaning. You could look for meaning. Consider subscribing to Paul Leslie's YouTube channel, and by all means, if you've enjoyed this interview, share it anywhere. We ask that you all accentuate the positive. And with that, I say, hey, let's listen together.
So here we are. It's the third and final part of the interview. This is Clay Eals' interview with Jimmy Buffett. He conducted this interview for the purposes of his book, Steve Goodman Facing the Music, a biography by Clay Eals. In this third and final part of the interview, something that struck me is that although the purpose of the interview was to learn about Steve Goodman primarily, we do learn so much about Jimmy Buffett. There's so many little nuggets that I found myself just thinking, wow, that's something. What were you most surprised to learn from your interview with Jimmy Buffett?
Well, Buffett's got a laid-back persona, like he was a big partier and wanted everybody else at the party, and we all know that. And given that, I was expecting a lot of kind of aw shucks answers and vagueness from him, but I was trying to get at a lot of details. And for the most part, it was surprising to me that Jimmy matched me detail for detail, which was great. And what was even better is that at times he was quite profound, especially when he talked about his philosophy of performing, which was just so strikingly similar to Goodman's, almost word for word. But there's also an element that applies to any interview, and that is it's just wonderful to learn new stuff. I mean, many times when you're interviewing somebody who's prominent, you're just getting that person to tell you something that you already know. But with Buffett, there were anecdotes that were new to me, and they were a perfect fit for my Goodman biography. And probably the best example opens the last chapter of my book, which is, it's just a hilarious story about Buffett rehearsing the national anthem so furiously early in the morning at his hotel before singing it at Wrigley Field in Goodman's place just after Goodman died. And again, just amazing detail. And you'll get to hear it in this third part.
Yes, and that did bring a chuckle, definitely, when I heard that. And let's just get to it. This is the third and final part of Clay Eals' interview with Jimmy Buffett. Let's begin.
Now, he recorded with you on several of your albums, playing backup guitar. He played backup vocals. So he used to talk a lot about how doing a record is different from a live show. And I'm wondering if you saw that in the studio with him. That you got to give people more in a studio record.
Well, there's a difference. I mean, I have always worked fast. I'm not somebody that makes making a record a painstaking process.
Mm-hmm.
To whatever, everybody has their style of doing it. I'm not one that goes in there and tries to be some kind of perfectionist. I think capture as opposed to create, because I think that comes from being alive. So I take a philosophy into the studio of not trying to beat a song to death. I mean, other people can do it. They come out and make miraculous Grammy-winning albums, and I'm happy for them, but it's not me.
Right.
And so
You're more going for the moment.
I'm going for the moment and the spontaneity, and you have somebody like Steve Goodman playing, he brings spontaneity to him. Oh,
Okay.
he's a great performer. So it was always, and I can only say that people that kind of worked on records in those days who were more used to playing top studio players always got a kick out of playing with Goodman because he brought a freshness and a little, they're used to just laying down tracks almost as if it's an 8 to 5 job, three
Right.
sessions a day. And we were different, because our approach was different. And he was always welcome and could just slide into any place and fit right into my band.
Seemed like an encyclopedia of songs and chords. I mean,
oh yeah,
he could pull it out pretty quickly. There's one thing I don't know if you remember this or not, but in the early 80s, and this was after Steve was, or tail ender when Steve was opening for Steve Martin, he commissioned this parody video that Martin Mull narrated. Do you remember this? And he played it before his concerts. It's about a 2.5-minute thing where Martin Mull basically, it's a satire on how you ought to buy Steve's album. And
I remember something about that. Yeah.
And you were involved in it,
aren't I?
Pardon?
Am I in it?
Yeah, you and Bonnie Raitt are talking. And Martin Mull has this. He cuts away. He says, but don't ask me about how good Steve Goodman is. I'm just a comedian. Let's talk to some people who are really actually performing artists, people like Jimmy Buffett and Bonnie Raitt. And instead of you guys saying how great Steve is, you're arguing about how much Goodman paid you to do this. You're saying, is he paying you to do anything to do this? And
you got a copy of that?
Yes, I do.
Oh,
audio copy, not video, but I'd be happy to send it to you. I put it on tape and put it in the mail.
Oh, that'd be great.
He said he would. He said he'd be delighted. You say, well, how much is he paying you? And she says, well, it's hard to tell with Steve. And you say, no, I want to know how much because I know what he offered me. I want to know what he offered you.
Who's got the video?
I don't know. I think
Al's got it.
Yeah, Al's got it. But Steve. It would be like Steve to play that kind of a self-deprecating thing, to introduce him. It's like,
yeah.
But you only have vague memories of that. Nothing specific. It's a great opening to a concert. I wanted to know, did you know early on that he'd been living with cancer?
Yeah.
He must have told you?
Yeah, he told.
Did he talk about this much?
Not that much. I mean, we did not talk about it, until he started getting sick. It was a fact, and I knew about it, and he was, I knew the story that he had been diagnosed and supposed to have been dead, and he was living on borrowed time, and he knew it.
Mm-hmm. Did it affect how you or others viewed him or interacted with him, do you think?
It affected me in the way that I think it was the first, somebody as close as we were who had a serious illness. I had never had anybody in my family die at that point. I had not had to experience that. So, yeah, it affected me.
Yeah. And, did interacting with him day to day,
No, like I said, he wouldn't let you go there,
Got
He was very upbeat about everything.
He kind of made you forget about it seems like.
Yeah, and even like I said, when he was really sick and I saw him at the end, and I went to Seattle.
You did?
Yeah, I was in the hospital with him right before he died. He was unconscious.
Oh, man. So you weren't able to say goodbye, so to speak?
Well, I think I did.
Yeah.
But he wasn't talking. He was on life support at that time. I went to Seattle, yeah. I went to the hospital.
Out at Utah Hospital?
Yeah, I was playing in San Francisco, and I flew up there to San Francisco. Very, very time.
It must have hit you hard.
It hit me very hard because I'd never seen anybody like that. But then I chose to remember he would want me thinking like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then I went back down.
And then 2 weeks later, you turn around and you're singing the national anthem at Wrigley.
Yeah.
The first day of the playoffs. How did that come to be?
They asked. I think I can't remember whether he was set to sing.
Yeah.
And I can't remember whether Cubs asked him or whether Nancy asked him. I can't remember. But we'll get to that. That was like going to church. That was where I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Was much better than being in the hospital, I'll tell you.
Had you ever done that at a game before?
No. I was there. I'll tell you a quick story, then I got to go because.
I'm almost done here.
There, of course, there was all this emotion. If you take the emotion of the Cubs being in the playoff, all of a sudden being asked to do this, and again, kind of like the eulogy, Chicago's goodbye to Steve Goodman.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so serious about it. And I think I had never sung at Wrigley Field before, and I'd sung a couple of national anthems, maybe down in Florida at football games, maybe only one at that time. I can't remember, but
not a baseball game,
not a Cubs game. This was it. And so, and the night before, I went out and bought a blazer. I mean, I got serious and I started listening to the lyrics and started singing the song practice. And I remember I was staying at the Whitehall Hotel. I had to get, and I checked in. And I got up early in the morning because I had to be out the park in very cold day. And everybody was kind of celebrating, wanted to go out there. And I said, no, I can't go out. I've got to get up. I got to be on the money for this thing tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to bed and I got up early in the morning. I was showering and everything. And I'm singing the national anthem. Just singing the shower, singing it all morning long. And I'll never forget walking out of my hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
About the same time the guy in the hotel room next to me came out of his door.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me like with this look like a fear in his eye, like, who is this wacko super patriot that sings the national anthem every morning? And I looked at him, I said, it's okay, I'm doing it at the ball game. And he said, boy, I never knew who the guy was, and I just walked by him in the hallway. But I thought, and I thought going out of there, Goodman would have loved that.
Mm-hmm.
Me, sitting there working that diligently, and some guy thinking that I'm some wacko, militia guy going to blow up the town or something. So, that happened the morning before I went out and sang.
And that is a good way to say goodbye. Jeez. You performed at the California Tribute, right?
I believe I did.
Yeah, that was shortly after that. Another way to kind of to close it, but I imagine it'll never be, really. I mean, he was a good friend of yours.
Well, he was, and I always think about him, like even to this day when we'd I tried to do a Steve Goodman song.
Yeah.
I used to mention it a lot, but then I thought, it's part of a show.
Mm-hmm.
People will know. You don't have to point a finger to what you're doing in tribute, and I used to always say that, I can't come to Chicago and play a show and not do a Steve Goodman song. I don't really say that to an audience anymore because my audience know that, but I do. I always play Steve Goodman song in Chicago.
Mm-hmm. What ones do you play most often?
Banana Republic.
That's the one. Yeah. Do parrot heads tend to be Goodman fans?
I don't know. It's an interesting thing, that I think that, there's so many diversified, if they're hardcore parrot heads, they probably are. People in general probably don't know.
Mm-hmm. The one last thing, Steve said as much as anybody, 100 years from now, nobody will give a shit.
Yeah.
Do you think his stuff will live on? What if his stuff is,
I think it lives on now. I mean, he lives on where he should live on to me, and that's in the family of performers. I mean, I don't think he ever wanted or cared about living on in terms of lasting on the level of a Frank Sinatra or somebody like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, it wasn't his nature, but I think he lives on because of his ability to craft the song.
Mm-hmm.
And not a lot of people know about him who this day it wouldn't have been a part of that era or followers, But I think the people that that do that for a living, who he has touched, will always, I'll always. I mean, my time with Steve and the times we had, and we didn't think about it.
It seems like there are two kinds of people. There's people who say Steve who, and then there's Steve Goodman.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
and
no
I
in between.
think that's the way he would have liked it. He was not. He was. I remember late. When when I was kind of taking off. And I chose to go ahead and go for it. He was very happy with his, success at his level. I remember him playing with Jethro Burns, and I had to go see those guys. And then by that time, Gamble Rogers, I had taken Gamble to Chicago.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And that was that connection. You know, that's gone now. There's not a lot of people who still perform like that. You know, I was fortunate enough to do what I did, and it got bigger than I ever thought in my wildest dreams. And I'm just riding the wave. You know,
Right.
I mean, and I think he would appreciate that. He always we had talked about that. He said, you know, you're gonna do it. And I said, I don't know, maybe I will, maybe I won't. He said, no, it will happen.
Why do you think it didn't happen to him in that sense?
Well, who knows? You know, it's all about luck, and it's all about combinations of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know. You know, it's just I don't know what happened for me. You know, there's a series of events that happened.
Mm-hmm.
He possessed all the tools that I possessed. There's nothing when I look back at our parallel careers. I mean, he probably had a few more tools than I had.
Mm.
But who knows?
And you know, maybe it's making it, so to speak. I mean, it's not all it's cracked up to be.
It's
too.
not all it's cracked up to be. No, it's not bad, but it's not all it's cracked up to be. I mean, I can say it as a survivor of 32 years.
Yeah.
I still like it. I mean, I love it better than any other job I can think about having. But, you know, I think he was happy. I think what happened when his family came along and he knew his time was limited,
Mm-hmm.
that meant more to him. You know, he didn't want to, you know, I don't think he, you know, his priorities changed at that point. I was still single and grace and health, you know, and he still had a family and he had limited time. And I think that, you know, he made the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
He could have been, you know, he could have been. That's, you know, when Brian, you know, if you look at John, I mean, John's kind of the same way. John had that great ride, still has, you know, a very comfortable career. I could have been right there too and been very happy.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, you know, but something happened to me and I was lucky enough to,
Mm-hmm.
something tripped in and more people thought it was cool than whatever. I don't know.
He certainly wasn't slighted, I guess. I mean, it's
No, I don't think at all. I think he had what he wanted. You know, we all did at that point in time. You know, you know, those Chicago years were wonderful years. I'm just lucky enough to still be performing at a level that I'm happy with, and I'm sure everybody that went through them is the same way. You know,
sure.
I love what John Prine does these days. And I think Goodman, he would have probably been right there with Prine at that level. Still had his fans going and playing it.
True.
You know,
And Prine's got a strong base out there wherever he goes. I got to ask you, it's not directly related to you, but City of New Orleans, we haven't talked about that at all, and yet that's his most. It's a standard, you know. In your mind, how do you look at that song? I mean,
I think you just say it's a standard. It's like Margaritaville to me. You know, it was somehow it became a hit.
Mm-hmm.
It became a song everybody liked. You know, it's not something that you know. I'm like that. I go to the other Steve Goodman songs. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it was you know, but it was the launching pad for him. And it's fine. You're lucky to get one. Most people don't get one. You know, and he wrote a standard, and I wrote a standard. It's kind of funny that, you know, we had a lot of parallels, a lot of similarities.
Yep.
And the way I look at Margaritaville, it belongs to people. They want to hear it, I'll play it. You know, and that's being a performer and an entertainer. It's not being an artist. You know, there are other people who go, well, I don't do that stuff anymore. Well, I'm not one of those people. You know, I know who pays the rent around here, and I will play the song as an entertainer. I think, you know,
That's part of the bargain.
yeah, it is part of the bargain.
And Steve recognized that too.
You can always go play the other songs if people appreciate them. You know, you don't apologize for your whole life.
Sure. Well, I really appreciate this time, Jimmy.
All right,
it's
Clay.
the greatest gift I mean, is your time. You said you'd like me to send you this cassette tape of the Martin
Well, yeah,
video?
I'll check with Al. I'd love to see the video of that thing.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Cool. I'll check with him down there.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much. This
Thank
has been
you.
Great. And I'll keep in touch through Keith Kate.
Okay, I'd love to see the book when you get done with it.
All right.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Clay, thank you so much for providing this interview so that we could bring this to all of the listeners out there. I do feel like with Steve Goodman passing and Jimmy Buffett just recently having passed on, there are things we can take away from their lives. There were a couple just from listening to this interview, but it's given me a lot of time to think. What occurs to you, Clay,
Well, that's an easy one. And I think it's just a number one life lesson. And it goes to, I mean, whatever you believe about how we all got here in this life, I don't think we're meant to be hermits. We're supposed to connect with people. We're supposed to engage people and inspire people. And I think both Steve Goodman and Jimmy Buffett embodied that lesson. And I hope that we can all continue to learn it.
Very well stated. Everybody out there, you can check out Clay Eals online, and the website is www.clayeals.com, EALS. And also, for those of you like me who like to find out all the stories behind songs and great songwriters, Steve Goodman, Facing the Music, a biography by Clay Eals. There's a lot of stuff in here and some just really fascinating things. I hope you all check it out. And Clay, thank you so much for sharing this interview with my audience, and also for keeping the name of people like Steve Goodman and like Jimmy Buffett and like Studs Terkel and so many of these other people, Arlo Guthrie. They're people that have really made an impression on this world, and I applaud you for doing what you've done.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. And, it's people like you and others who've kept the book alive. I don't know of another author who has the privilege that I do of, when the book sells out of printing, that I'm able to update a printing. That's due to my publisher, ECW Press. And so the book is now in updated 6th printing. And like you said, my website's the place to go if you want to make sure to get the most recent edition. And it comes with a signed postcard by me and also an actual CDR of tribute songs to Goodman that are described in the book as well. And it's been a joy to do this project, and it's the biggest project of my life.
Well, Clay, thank you so much. Great, always great to talk to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Till next time.
We thank you and appreciate you dropping in for the Paul Leslie Hour today. You can help the Paul Leslie Hour in our mission to provide independent media content like this by visiting www.thepaulleslie.com/support. We truly thank you. This is your announcer speaking. Performance of The Entertainer intro song and Corina outro song, courtesy of John Primorano. Well, that's it for today. So until next time, be safe and be good.